Everybody's Perch. I think, the thing I want to talk about is actually aiming big. Okay, so and what I mean by aiming big is that when you're going to do, a whatever it is you're going to do a hobby, you've got a company you want to build, you've got a game you want to do, you whatever it is, or in this case, it's not whatever it is, it's a comic. You're going to make a comic. You're going to create a company that's going to make comics, whatever it happens to be. I think that one of the problems I see with comics today in how they're being made and how people are thinking about them is that in a lot of the creators' minds, they've calibrated down to a hobby or a niche idea. A lot of the comics that come out, if you read them on the surface, they read like either somebody's kind of pet project that they always wanted to do, but it's what they used to call an art house project, which means something that is not going to be commercially successful. It's not going to appeal to a ton of people, but it's a passion project. And Steven Spielberg, the director, used to comment on things like this, where he knew that he could make a blockbuster. He knew that he could produce films that were going to be blockbusters, and that was kind of that was how he made his money. That was how he made his fame, and he respected that and he understood that. And then, every now and then, Steven Spielberg said, for creative reasons, he wanted to do a project that was more personal. It was something he wanted to do. By contrast, David Lynch, as a director, famously kind of gave a quote that said that, why would he waste his life on summer popcorn movies? He wanted to make the movies he wanted to make, even if he was the only one watching them. And he committed to that bit. It wasn't that he made that statement because nobody would hire him or because he was somehow bad as a director and he was compensating. That's actually how he believed. That's what he wanted to do. That's what he thought was right. So, he steered his career that way and was happy, or as happy as David Lynch is. He doesn't strike me as somebody who really is out for happiness in a lot of ways. But, there's that aspect of kind of, knowing what you want to do. And typically people, they want to shoot for the stars. They want to try and hit a home run, or the expression is they take a big swing. And I hear a lot of ideas for comics, and you see a lot of creators kind of like, here's the project I always wanted to do. And you read it and you're like, well, this is an art house project. And I would say that in the 80s, in the 90s, a lot of creators who would do stuff like that, understood what they were doing. They understood that they were making something that was a little bit more alternative, a little bit more independent, a little bit, something that was going to be a harder sell. But they were financially in the position they could do it, or maybe they didn't care. They made their money and they wanted to do something creative. Fine. Today, a lot of projects, and not just projects from creators who kind of left comics and are now trying to get back in, but ones who are from the mainstream, Marvel and DC comics. Both the story idea, the pitch, the comic itself feels like something that is very much intended for a very small audience. The difference is, I don't think the creators involved understand that anymore. There's that, and I don't know if this is a special gift or if it's just something that people lost over time, but there's an understanding of what bet you're making. What are you swinging for? What are you doing? That seems to be a kind of a lost art. Seems to be something that maybe scares people. They don't really want to have to face that idea that maybe their ideas suck, or maybe they're doing an idea that's going to appeal to 10,000, 15,000 people. I guess so. So let's get into some specifics. We've seen that as Dan Didio has left, he's tried to get back into comics. But even better would be look at some of the stuff on Substack. A lot of these ideas are the very definition of an art house project. Now, if I could kind of go down the list, if I look at, say, Jonathan Hickman, and you look at what he's doing with his comic, and I now got the comic, and I've read it, and got my physical version of it. I don't think Hickman is expecting that his Substack, his comic is going to be a smash hit. I don't think he views it like he would view taking a job doing the Avengers or the X-Men, for example. I think he views it as, a pure distillation of kind of his creativity, his mind. That's what he's doing. By contrast, Donnie Cates did the thing with Stegman. That seems to be a little bit off the rails at this point, but I think Donnie Cates, I believe, actually feels like he's creating big time mainstream work, or at least wants to. Scott Snyder's doing classes. It's kind of different. Several of the others, Zdarsky and you kind of whatever Nick Spencer's doing over there, and like you could go down the list of other creators that are involved, and all of them feel like somebody doing an art project. And don't get me wrong, that probably sounds like I'm saying that kind of distasteful. I'm not. I think it's cool that you get to do this creative project, your creative dream thing you've always wanted to do. I think that's nice. But I also think, I want people swinging for bigger than that, particularly when it's Marvel and DC. For better or worse, that is the summer blockbuster popcorn movie of comics. That's what they are. And so if the comics are going to come out, you hear these ideas, and I lots of people pitch me ideas all the time. I feel like I'm, in the last 6 months, well, even less than that, last 3 months, I feel like I'm getting a ton of ideas. And now everybody's going to wonder if the idea they pitch me is one of these, but probably not. I don't know a way to give code to people. But a lot of these ideas are not big ideas. They're very, very small ideas. And again, if this is your art project, if this is kind of the thing you want to do creatively, then that's fine. It could be what it can be. But if you believe that you're out here creating the next answer, not the next big thing for Marvel or DC, but the next answer for Marvel and DC, that's the biggest clue I'm going to give. If you think you're going to create the next big competitor to those companies, pure competitor, not doing stuff with them, not doing stuff of theirs, but competitor, then you got to be bringing your A game. You got to be coming up with a concept that's truly big. It's not going to work if your concept is small. If you're trying to do kind of hey, it'd be kind of crazy is if I did this, this comic about this thing that's going to appeal to a very independent audience. Why are you bothering? Again, if your goal is to creatively kind of do something where you have some freedom, okay, I get that. I get why you're bothering. If your goal is to do something massive and you truly think this is the thing that's going to put you on the map, it's not. Did we lose the ability to understand the difference? Where did that go? Again, there's people pitch me things, and some of the stuff that I get pitched is just that idea is DOA. And in fairness, and this is probably the biggest kind of hit, if you called me up or you wrote me and you gave me your idea, you pitched me your idea, and I say, yeah, I think that's a really good idea, I wasn't lying to you. I mean it. If I said, hey, if that's the thing you want to do, if this is the kind of thing you want to do, that means I think your idea is not going to sell well. But again, I meant what I said. If that's what you want to do, great. But if I said, I think that'd be really strong. The thing is, I haven't said that very often to people lately because a lot of the ideas that have come up are just terrible. And they may appeal to some. When I look at the solicitations and I see some of the comics coming out, they're pitched like something that is definitely not going to sell, that has almost zero crossover creative appeal to it. And if you're Marvel or DC, I don't know why you're bothering. If you're Marvel and you've got an idea that is kind of a very, just a very, very niche concept, it's a waste of everyone's time, most importantly yours. I don't feel like I'm landing the point very well in this video, so I'm sorry. It's not a very good video, but it's. I'll put it. Let me give you a couple different examples. When Mark Miller did the pitch of the spy who is older now and he's terminally ill, and he wants to basically kind of balance the scales a little bit, take out the bastards who truly need taking out. Okay, King of Spies was the book. That is a comic that has a pitch that's got mainstream wide appeal to it. That's a good idea. Sold well, it'll make a good series at some point, which is, kind of why he's writing it. And, good. That works out. It's an easy to understand story. It's got a number of different audiences that would go for that. It's got the right balance between kind of humanization and action. It's going to work. If your idea was, hey, I'm going to do something that's that's kind of political drama in the 1800s, and we're going to be looking into the secret society of Renaissance, not the 1800s, further back. Anyway, Renaissance time period. We're going to go further back. We're going to look into a secret society of painters who worked during that time period and kind of the relationships and entanglements that went along the way. Okay, there will be some people who are into that, but you do have to realize you are not coming up with a mainstream big idea that is going to sell much. You're just not. You have to be aware. Some self-awareness would go a long way. And I think the part that worries me a little bit about comics is I feel like a lot of people have recalibrated to where they're not even trying to hit a home run anymore. They believe that the definition of success would be doing one of these niche ideas, selling, 20,000 copies of it, getting a graphic novel, and that's a success. And if that's what you're happy with, cool, that's a success. But that's not a financial success, and those ideas do not keep the industry alive. You need some summer blockbuster popcorn films. Like, look, I love David Lynch to death, love his films, absolutely am amazed and astonished by his creative talent. If every movie was David Lynch-like movie, the industry would collapse. Theaters would go out. It'd be more destructive to the movie industry than COVID. You couldn't survive. You need both things. You need the creative projects. You also need the summer popcorn flick films in order to have a healthy industry. If everybody just kind of convinces themselves, and I think it's a coping thing, if they convince themselves that, well, there's no way that they could, come up with a big idea anymore. It's just impossible. So why bother? If that's where they feel they're at, I'm sorry. Um, we're in for a rocky. The comic industry is dead at that point. I mean, seriously, it cannot survive that level of commitment. It can't make it. It needs to be bigger than that. You've got to and if the creators involved believe that's as good as they can do, well, stop. Make room for people who can actually come up with the big ideas. I don't know. Again, I don't feel like I landed that point, but here's hoping. Let me know if you can make any sense out of this, and thanks for listening.